What's a pain people won't understand until it happens to them? Story 1. Becoming disabled. It can happen to anyone. Doesn't matter how healthy you've been or what you eat or anything else. Answer. Walking paraplegic here. People may think I'm so lucky walking again, but they forget that I'm still a bloody paraplegic. I have to use a walker, cane, or crutches. I'm liable to fall at any moment because my legs will just give out with no warning. My urinary and bowels are fudge forever. I can't feel pain below a certain point, so if I cut myself, I wouldn't know. I'd just bleed out. Some days, I can't even get out of bed because the legs won't work. And I dislike the god-awful dreams where I'm running, climbing, doing things I used to do, and being independent because I then wake up and it hurts. My soul every time. There is no getting over it. No, just accept it. You might think it doesn't bother you anymore, and then something happens that will leave you bawling, wishing for your old life. Story 2. Migraines. People that don't get migraines think it's just a headache that will go away with a couple Tylenol when it's actually debilitating. Answer. Migraines involve so much more than just pain. The prevailing theory is it's a slow-moving electrical storm moving through different areas of your brain, stimulating neurons to fire. Depending on the path the storm takes, you can have different effects. Seeing things that are not there, smelling smells that aren't there, or a heightened sense of smell, confusion, aphasia, and many more symptoms. Sometimes it finally reaches the outer layer of the brain where pain nerves exist. They and the muscles near them get stimulated, which further send pain signals. But the migraine is only 12. Over. It now gets to return through the brain, causing the postdrome symptoms, plus the exhaustion from all the stimulation and pain. Story 3. Hopelessness depression to the point where tragic end seems blissful. Been there a handful of times. Acted twice. And it sucks. Words of encouragement feel invalidating. Nothing brings you joy, and you're stuck in a constant loop of trying to maintain a logical approach and battling the emotional lows that eventually turn numb. Story 4. Homelessness. Just know there's people out there that have no family or loved ones to welcome them to a warm home or help them out in a time of need. It's hard being 100 independent, true independent. Answer. This. 2 years ago happened to my family, and Emil wouldn't allow us to stay with her, even though we let her stay with us for half a year, and I don't have any living family or village to lean on. Everyone is so quick to assume every homeless person is just lazy, or a junkie, or made bad life choices. That is absolutely not the case. It also always makes me so upset when people judge homeless people who turn to substances and adult beverage to cope. Like, yeah, okay, you try living in that position and report back to me how your mental health and coping skills remained just so perfect, and how you had so many resources to get help and so many ways to remain warm when it was cold out. Story 5. Being used for whatever reason during a relationship, like intimacy or money, it drains TF out of you. Story 6. Having to deal with someone who has a full-blown personality disorder, usually psychopathy, of narcissistic personality disorder. Answer. Yup, my MIL. Worst person I have ever met. 2 years ago, after years of me asking, the wife finally went to therapy and we have boundaries in place. But it darn near broke our marriage. We are NC right now and discussing what, if any, future contact will look like. If the wife wants to keep that swamp witch in her life, I won't stop her. But me and the kids are never seeing her again. She will emotionally abuse them like she did her own kids, and I refuse to allow that. Story 7. Losing a child in the NICU and coworkers thinking it's rude when you avoid being around their newborns. Story 8. Betrayal. and everyone telling you to let it go. The pain from realizing everyone is protecting the villains whilst turning a blind eye to the victims. Answer: I was present when my exes and my mutual friends had a whole conversation about how despicable it is to cheat in a relationship and how they'd never be friends with a cheater. 2 months later, we all found out my ex cheated on me. Guess which one of us they're still friends with? I saw myself out when it became clear they didn't care what he did at all. Story 9. Losing a parent while young, being forced into homelessness, clawing your way out just to be check to check with 10 years of your life gone. Story 10. Gout. It is excruciating, debilitating, and constant. There is no working through it. Pain pills won't help. Only prescription meds that are targeted towards gout can slowly provide you with relief. But if you don't get the meds in time, they will not be effective for days or even weeks. I don't wish it on my worst enemy. Answer: yup. Then if you take colchicine to eradicate the gout attack, you have to know exactly when to stop taking it, because if you swallow one too many now, you're puking and have diarrhea, and the gout attack circus is still in town. Gout is one of those maladies that make men seem even more dramatic than they usually are when something is wrong. My God, it's just a baby blowing a kiss at your big toe. Why are writing your last will testament, you fat suckhole? Story 11. IUD replacement initial insertion. Medical professionals are convinced that the procedure can be done with the patient fully conscious, taking Tylenol 1 to 2 hours before the appointment and return to work the same day. Answer: I think I was barely 20 when I had mine placed. Female doc told me it was painless, but that there might be cramping afterward. I asked my 32-year-old male community college classmate from Iraq if he could give me a ride between classes. The pain was so severe, I felt convinced the doctor was being a sadist and denying it as nearly passing out from it. My classmate treated the confusing WTF just happened to you ride with me squirming and writhing in pain as though I was in labor. He said in the most earnest way, "It's okay, my dear. I will help you and your robot baby." The first. Replacement. I told them about my pain from the first time, and it was an ARNP who told me she could do a nerve block to prevent that from happening again. I made sure to ask for a nerve block every time after. Story 12. Having an ER doctor say to his nurse that I was a junkie because I had been there twice that week begging for pain management for a BB-sized kidney stone. That hurt worse, having 2 jobs, no insurance, and having a rich prick suggest I was a junkie. I couldn't afford a $5,000 laser procedure to break it up to pass it. That was 20 years ago, and I still despise wealthy people, only worse now. Never was and still am not a junkie. Story 13. Having a large secondary cancer growth feeding off your intestines and pushing everything out of the way to grow bigger by the day. Story 14. Are we talking physical or mental? Because being left at the hospital with your new baby by your husband is top tier in the emotional fuck-up category. Story 15. Shingles. Get ready for 3 weeks with no sleep, constant pain and irritation, and there is physically no way to position yourself to minimize the discomfort. I got it when I was 28, at a time I was under a lot of stress, and it really has a rough time with the affliction. Not sure if the new vaccine works, but at the time, there was no way out but working through it. Story 16. Stillbirth. My wife and I are both black-hearted registered nurses, so now we can joke about it, but we weren't prepared at all. Born on my half-birthday, and she looks so much like me. That shoot stings like nothing else. Story 17. That depression that eats away at your soul. People think it's just sadness, but I would take physical pain or sadness over that phase of life again. Story 18. Becoming chronically sick, disabled, or going through a life-threatening illness. It changes the way you see the world and life, and you become hyper-aware of how fragile and fleeting life as you know it can be. Story 19. For me, it's about losing someone who's still alive but no longer the same person to you. I feel like that kind of grief doesn't come with a funeral, but it hurts just as deep. Story 20. Tinnitus. It's just awful. It doesn't stop. It doesn't change. It's torture. Silence basically doesn't exist for me anymore. Go read the comments on a white noise YouTube video or hang out on our tinnitus. It sucks. Story 21. Having to regularly reassure my 78-year-old mom, a U.S. green card holder for 50 years, that she won't be kidnapped off the street, but not being so sure of it myself. Story 22. When you're being intimacy assaulted and you realize you have to let them do it so they don't eliminate you. Also, pancreatitis. Made childbirth seem like a piece of cake. Story 23. Period pain. Men don't get it, obviously, but not all women have excruciating pain. Mine is debilitating enough that I am bedridden for a day every month. A friend of mine just admitted to me that she always thought I was being dramatic and looking for attention. She just recently had a painful period and called me to tell me that she was sorry. Story 24. Physical. An abscessed tooth. I always knew they were painful, but actually experiencing it was something else. I have an extremely high pain tolerance. The pain I was in was crippling to the point I was having trouble forming coherent thoughts. All I wanted was to rip it out of my head, and at one point in my desperation, I contemplated jumping in front of a car. They gave me an ungodly amount of lidocaine until they could pull it. The relief had me woozy, mental, losing a child. I've lost many people that I considered dear to me, and I am no stranger to grief. But losing my infant son was like someone had scooped every part of who I was out of my soul with a melon baller and then shoved it back in like they were trying to put a can of biscuits back in the tube. It's been 4 years. I am still alive, and for most intents and purposes, I'm functional and mostly happy with life. But every once in a while, it hits me like a freight train, and I can't breathe. I will never be who I was before. Story 25. Having your parents get old and start forgetting things. You think you're prepared for it, but watching someone who taught you everything slowly lose pieces of themselves is brutal. And there's nothing you can do to fix it. The role reversal hits different when you're suddenly the one making decisions for them. Story 26. Passing of someone you loved, someone who loved you in return in a healthy way, whether human or pet. Sometimes that understanding comes too early in life, sometimes quite late. Either way, for most of us, it changes you and how you look at your life and the lives of others, forever. Story 27. Losing a loved one, missing them, and then forgetting how hard the grief hits you, and when it happens again, you remember instantly how hard the grief hits and wonder how you forgot that in the first place. Story 28. Going a diff route, mental illness, BC, a job sleep deprivation. Not sleeping is not something to fudge with. You can take the smartest, kindest person and you make them not sleep. For honestly, not that long of a period, and I'll see how fudge they get. If you make that years, it's a train wreck. Story 29. Schizophrenia. No one really understands what it's like for your mind to attack you all the time until they break. Story 30. Losing your first dog. My childhood dog was my best friend in the entire universe. I went everywhere with her and did everything together. I had to bury her. I miss her all the time. I've never felt any sort of connection like that to another dog again. Story 31. Friend breakups. The drama and detaching from them takes a toll and can be a chain reaction in group dynamics. Story 32. Fibromyalgia, nerve pain, CPTSD, and traumatic grief, all at the exact same time. Great, painful combo. Story 33. Migraine. As guys, we'd laugh about it in middle school, referring to it as for chicks only. This past December and part of January had migraines on and off. Man, felt like the right side of my head was going to split open any second. Story 34. Severe migraines. People who don't get them always say, "Oh, they're just bad headaches. Do this and that to help them." No, they're not just headaches. They are insanely debilitating and require me to sleep in a dark room for days with zero noise or light, more times than not requiring an ER trip for IV opioid painkillers and antiemetics so I don't puke or pass out from the pain. Story 35. Becoming disabled. Also the loss of mom, dad, younger brother within 9 months. Then another younger brother commits tragic end a year later FML. Story 36. Physical. In the moment, childbirth. But it's a pain you forget so fast. Like as soon as it's done, it's over, and you can't really explain when you think back. Mental. I'd say having to go no contact with parents. Like there's days where you miss them and just want them to text, but you realize that what you want is a fantasy and not the reality of who they are. When you're a child, you think your parents are superheroes, but realizing they are the villains is a hard pill to swallow. Story 37. Bilateral facial pain from trigeminal neuralgia. I have seriously considered tearing an eye out or my face off. It's crazy pain. I wish it wasn't on my face. Anywhere else would be so much better. It's like hot stabbing, shocking, and pulling, while hot tingling randomly all over my face and scalp at about a 6-7 out 10 in severity until I go into flare up to a 10. I have hope for new treatment soon that will finally be covered by insurance. Story 38. Being unable to talk to someone you love because you keep having panic attacks while they are seeing someone else but apparently not so seriously. And then finding out it's too late even though they said they love you several times throughout it all. Story 39. My father fought cancer for more than a year and was in remission. He was going to come and watch a football game. He didn't show and wasn't answering his phone. Go over to his house and found him dead. Doctors say it was a heart attack. That was like 5 years ago. I've completely lost the ability to recall time. Story 40. Back pain. The only person I've ever met who understood that maybe some days I can't lift stuff due to pain was my old manager. He was involved in the Marines, and he told me he had to get a couple discs fused together. Everyone else pulls the, "Hey, I know your back is bad, but can you lift this?" Story 41. First heartbreak. I used to not understand why people were so extremely upset for literal months or even years after a breakup. I now completely understand why, and it is honestly the worst thing I've ever felt, and it is taking me forever to move on. Story 42. Grief from losing a loved one. The pain never ends. It just softens a bit over the years and becomes a part of your DNA, a permanent hole in you that never goes away. You'll laugh again and have joy again, but it won't be the same as before. Story 43. Gout. Have had it multiple times and it's fudge agony. They say it's the closest thing a man can have to giving birth. Kidney stones being a close second. 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. A bed sheet on your foot or a draft in a room can have you in tears. Story 44. Physical. IUD. The pain I felt while getting it was exactly like the contractions I had when I went into labor. Never again. Mental. Losing a parent. I lost my mom over a year ago and she was only 69. She called, texted me every day. Was very hard to get used to not having that after she died. I don't think you'll ever delete her text messages or voicemails. Story 45. Losing the person you thought you'd spend your life with. There's no preparing for that kind of pain. I lost my girlfriend when we were both 28. We had plans, marriage, kids, a whole future we were building together, and she just got her PhD. We never fought. We communicated effortlessly. We were in sync in every part of life. She was my best friend, my partner, my peace. The initial loss was devastating, but the real weight came later. What it does to your soul, to your sense of who you are, is something no one warns you about. You keep functioning, you look fine, but deep down, you're not. You're changed. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I know others have felt it too, and if you have, you're not alone. Story 46. Severe burns. Burnt about 10 of my body with second-degree burns from boiling water while I was cooking. It was unreal. On the drive to the hospital, my husband says I was literally beating myself in the head violently to distract from the pain. I remember very little of the night. And then the showers. I had to shower twice a day, rub the dead skin off with a bandage, and then rebandage what was basically my entire lower half. My husband and my mom were champs. I couldn't help but scream and swear through showering and debriding of the burns, and I literally could not wrap myself in the... I have a friend who had burnt more of his body, even worse, a few years before, due to the wind catching a propane open flame. I cannot imagine. On a positive note, it made me a hell of a lot less nervous to give birth when that time came a few years later. Story 47. Have a family member take down. I've had 2 of my cousins take down around my age. One solved, one is not, but it all hurts the same. One was at the wrong place at the wrong time and was just 26, going to school to be a nurse and left behind 2 very young children. The youngest just turned a year old. You don't move on from things like that. It will always haunt you. Story 48. Migraine. It's more than a headache. It's a whole experience that just happens to include a headache. Story 49. I have a constant worry. I dislike that it occupies my mind, losing my love, my husband. Have presently been married 56 years. Story 50. One of my sisters asked me when we were younger what a headache feels like. I had headaches multiple times a week. I wanted to cry, losing a spouse. Being the surviving spouse is truly terrible. Stuck here for who knows how long, while this intense grief smashes you from out of nowhere. And then, you're back at square one. Story 51. Addiction. Feeling like you aren't in control of your life and you've missed out on so much. Haunted by your own squandered potential all day, every day as you continue to witness yourself, sabotage yourself, as if something else is running the show and you're just along for the ride. The shoot ride. Story 52. Grief of losing a partner or child suddenly. No, your beloved dog, coworker, or divorce don't even come close. They may be painful or different, but don't even bother trying to relate this way. It's really shoot to the person grieving. Story 53. Real migraine. When people whine about a migraine and they're still walking, talking, driving, child, that's just a little headache. Answer. Okay, I understand what you mean, but don't gatekeep migraines and their symptom intensity though. They present differently in different people, and there are a few types of them. Some people are on the floor vomiting in a dark room with no classic aura. Others see the classic aura, and have milder but still debilitating symptoms, etc. People are out there just calling their tension headache a migraine though, which is annoying. Story 54. Hallucinations. People find it easy to throw around the crazy word at people. But then, when it's you sitting in your living room, hearing whispers coming from the next room, hearing loved one, friends, family, say they want you dead and are gonna eliminate you while you sleep. Image being terrified for your life, and people are calling you crazy Rip. Not being able to trust yourself or anyone around you is a whole other type of hopeless lol. Story 55. Losing both your maternal grandparents and your brother in 2 years when you're 9-11, then your mom and other grandmother the same year at 30. My kids wonder why I'm always telling them about safety and things to do or not do to protect them. I knew way too much about passing from early age. Story 56. Losing a child. My son passed, almost 4 years ago, July 3rd. I still feel it like it was today. You don't want to be here anymore, but if you have another child, which I do, you have to be. They both had leukemia, and they both had to have a bone marrow transplant. He, 29, developed GVHD in his lungs. She is cured and is currently 29. It's a mental, emotional, spiritual, sometimes physical pain that you learn to continue living with every day. No, time does not make it better. No, time does not make it easier. It just becomes different. You still laugh, but not same. You still get up and do. Go, just not the same. There is a light in you still, BC of the other child, but not as bright. To be honest, it's hell. Those moms that know, they just know. Story 57. The constant anxiety and mental exhaustion that comes with being stalked. People don't understand that stalking can be a lot more complex than repeated unwanted contact. Every situation is different, but there can be a strong element of sadism behind it, and the resulting hypervigilance isn't something you can just turn off. Personally, I feel safer and more at ease when I'm somewhere unfamiliar halfway across the country than I do in my own home. I also sleep better because I know the likelihood of him getting to me is a lot less. Story 58. How has no one mentioned childbirth or running a marathon? Yeah, we talk about those hurting, but experiencing them is indescribable. Story 59. The pain of losing both a physical and emotional connection with a special person, in which you fall in love but can't be together due to external circumstances. This then triggers intense pain and reflection because this person activated something in you in which you don't understand in the beginning, only to find out that this person came into your life to heal you from wounds that never healed. Not everyone goes through a spiritual awakening, and it's incredibly hard and painful, yet enlightening at the same time. You lose yourself the old. You only to become your true self, who you're really meant to be. Story 60. Having your chest cracked open and your sister accidentally putting her hands on your stomach drains. Story 61. Kidney stone. And as far as not being a physical pain, being betrayed by people you saw as really good friends' family. Story 62. Physically, fibromyalgia. Mentally, discovering that you have suppressed memories and were lied to all your life, then feeling like you live with complete strangers. Story 63. Kidney stones. No, not passing them. When they get stuck in your ureter and consequently your kidney fills up with fluid. That is a pain that is hard to describe. It is all-encompassing and all-present. There is no way to ignore it, no position that is comfortable, no medicine you can get without a doctor that will help. Morphine and ketorolac V, and then